I'd like to start today's Employment Roundtable podcast. We have a guest today, Amy O'Brien. She is a general manager in dining services from the Granite State of all places. Amy, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So my co-host Alex and I, um, with this opportunity with Amy, are going to touch upon a couple of topics that are both near and dear to all three of our hearts and many of our listeners out there, be it employers or some of the employees that might be challenging to people like Amy in the food and beverage industry. So to start out, Amy, why don't you give us just a brief background on some of your experiences you would like to share, and then we can get right into the topic at hand.
So for many years, I've been in the food and beverage industry, actually my entire life. And between hotel end and restaurant world, I've done every position you can think of and worked my way up in the food chain. And I am where I am now. I've been a general manager for quite some time. And, it's just my challenges today are more or less recruiting, getting good staff in. I deal with a lot of the younger generations, some of the older generations, and the struggle is getting good work these days anywhere really, all over the world, I could say. But um, being up in a small town in New England, away from all the cities, it's definitely a challenge up here.
No, I hear you. So, with that, the topic that we're going to spend some time, Alex and I, talking to Amy about today is really around the challenge of recruiting and retaining good quality employees and the expectations versus the reality that these applicants and future employees may or may not have proper alignment with management. Would that be a fair way to say it, Amy?
Yeah.
I
I
definitely would
can't
say
start.
so.
I can't start tomorrow and be president on Friday. That it doesn't work that way.
Correct.
I hear. So maybe you can spend a few minutes on some of the challenges and how you overcome those in the interview process, both with respect to work and employment expectations and career advancement. I mean, they kind of go together. If I don't really like what you have to say, I'm probably not going to take the job. But yet at the same time, you can't promise me the world when at the end of the day, the only thing about the world I get is to live in it every day. So I'll let you start from there.
So when we put out ads, we're very descriptive of what the job entails, the job duties, pay rate, pay range. And when they come in for an interview, we show them everything. We go over all the details, we explain the job duties, and then if they're still interested, we show them, all around to make sure that they're comfortable with even working, where they're whatever station they're going to be working at. So they're well aware and that they're comfortable. And if they want to proceed, we make them an offer. They accept the offer or decline the offer, one or the other. And we bring them aboard. There's a lot of onboarding paperwork, things like that. But once they're in, they come aboard and we start the training process and we go from there.
How, Amy, sorry, Alex, so one thing on that. So what type of feedback relative to 2024 and I'm dating myself here, and I don't think you were around then, but even in 2010, what's been the difference in terms of messaging and mentoring or training? How do you give that feedback? Is it more difficult to be direct, or is that what you feel is the best way to work with people? The reason I ask that, Amy, is it seems to me that in my experience and other people I've talked to, sometimes constructive criticism just doesn't land the same way as it used to.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. And, a lot with the younger generation opposed to, the work ethic, it's just completely, and the mindset has been completely changed. And from way back 2010 till now, especially after COVID,
Mhm.
I try to be as direct as possible so they know what they're walking into and not having any surprises, because the minute they get a surprise, they walk out the door, and you can't keep staff. So I try to be completely upfront, when they sign all their paperwork, their job duties are on there. I always give them a copy of their job duties. I just try to be as straightforward as possible so they know what to expect when coming onto the position. Um, it's truly, the eagerness is not there, as what it used to be back in 2010. I see it. I see it with the younger generation, the ambition to work, to put any kind of effort into any of the jobs. And with the younger generation, it's more cashier work, washing tables, being in the dish room, maybe helping prep food depending on their experience. So it's just, you see a huge difference. It's just the motivation is just not there like it used to be.
Mhm.
I have a quick question about this, Amy, and you touched about it briefly just now, but you had mentioned about how detailed you are with the job descriptions, right? And so you put out all the details, you have the conversation during the interview process, and then are you finding that when somebody starts the job, it's almost like all those job duties and descriptions was never in their head at all? Like they're always surprised that cleaning dishes and being in the dish room is part of the job and flipping tables is part of the job. Is that what you're finding as well?
Correct. So when they take a cashier position, part of the cashier job duties are to go out and also help wash down, it's front of the house. So you help wash down tables, you take out garbage, you tend to the guests if need be, if they have any questions, things like that. And they come in and they're like, I thought I was just going to be a cashier. I didn't realize I had to wash tables. You're making me wash tables. Now I want more money. And then they're like, well, if you don't give me more money, I'm going to walk. And so it's even though you're like, okay, here it is, and here's, then you bring out the job duties again and in the description, you're like, right in here it says, this is your job description.
Right.
It's part of that. But then they don't want to do it. So the work ethic is they just want to stand at the register. One of my facilities, the register, if it's downtime, the younger generation, student workers get to sit and do their homework while they're on duty. And, we're very, we want them to get their studies in. We want them to, want to work with us. But it's like the minute of just having to get up and wash a table, they want, $20 an hour, opposed to, we pay pretty good student workers and the younger generation to keep up with, all the surrounding areas. And it's just every 2 months, they're coming back for more and more money. And it's like they want $30 an hour and they're 18 years old. I everybody wants that,
Right.
but they're not willing to put the work and effort into actually doing the job. And if we're so short staffed, it's kind of like I kind of have to, work with them to where, okay, I'll give you a little more money. But you got to prove to me that you can do this, and you can prove to me that you're actually going to be doing the job. So that's the standstill where I'm at now. It's trying to keep staff, the younger generation, on board and make them happy. Try to show them that, working pays off, and it'll, the harder you work, it's better for you in the long run, and it'll only advance you more and more.
Yeah. What about the older cohort? Inflation, cost of living, people that were either termed out after COVID or the way work is. Are you finding a more willing workforce in people, say, over 50 or 60? Or is that just as difficult, not from the pay standpoint, but just finding the people? Or are you
So
looking there?
the older generation that works, for me, they've been there 15 years, 10 years, 18 years. And there's such a great team, and you can see the difference between the work ethic. They come in, that's their life. That's what they've done their entire life, is work hard, work 2, 3 jobs if need be, to feed their families or to support themselves. And, I have people that are actually retired that's only wanting to work part-time that have been covering full-time because we're so short-staffed, and they're willing to do anything to help the team and to make it successful.
Seems
Yeah.
like a lack of team
So
mentality might be out there. Is kind of what I'm reading.
I
Right.
think one thing there, Amy, and I don't want this to come across as you know, negative in a way, but we seem to be having a real challenge with the younger generation. It doesn't matter if it's in food and beverage, hospitality, any of the other, technology jobs. There's always a feeling or the desire that or belief they have an empowerment that really wasn't existent in any of the generations prior.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not meant to be, I don't want to come across as negative and the kids can't do it, etc. We need to find a way to reach these people. And I know you mentioned you let them do their homework, etc. But at some point in time, they really have to step up. And I'm asking, when you talk to other professionals in your community that are going through the same challenges you are there other tools and skills that you've either picked up from other people in your community, or even if it's a different channel of employment where you've seen things that have worked? Because we need this generation to step up, and we're trying to meet them somewhere. It just doesn't seem like there's as much desire to meet in the middle by the generation as there is by us trying to meet them in the middle. Does that make sense? You kind of agree with that, or
No, I
did I say
completely
it wrong?
agree. And the one unit, the students are allowed to do their homework, and the other unit, it's more there's no chance that they would have the time. So of course, all the student workers want to work down at that location because they get away with being able to sit and do their homework on downtime. Um, Truthfully, I think just so much has changed with technology. This isn't, you know, Xbox, and you can make video games all day and love your job. But when it comes down to the hard work, it's just phones, it's constant phones, being on their phones, and laptops and watches. And it's like, okay, no cell phones while you're on duty. Then they get the watch, and then they're on their watch. And it's just
Yeah.
it's just a constant battle with technology these days, with kids um having access to all different sorts of means to text and email and watch shows and things like that. But my perspective is, a lot is communication, teamwork, making them want to come to work every day, being positive. Employee recognition is a big thing. We do it 1 to 2 times a year, trying to give them for their hard work, you know, gift cards, every semester or whatnot. You pick a couple, employee of the month, or, you give them a special parking, pass, or anything to encourage them to be like, this is a great place to work, and I want to come to work. I don't have anxiety. I don't have the stress, especially if they're a student, they have to deal with their homework and their finals and things like that. They don't want the stress when they have to come into work. So to try to make it a great atmosphere for them to want to come into work. I mean, with any work, there's stress, but to make it more, you know, positive for them to want to come into work is a big key thing for me. And it's worked out pretty well for the most part. Most of the staff has been here, like I said, for a long time. In my past employment, it was difficult, restaurant world, keeping staff, and that had a lot to do with the older generation with the younger generation not getting along, and, you know,
Mhm.
ownership of, you know, whatever restaurant it was. It was very difficult to keep people, but you know, this is a little different atmosphere where I'm at now, opposed to what I was over many years. So it was a big adjustment for me. And, you know, it just all around, and I see from past to future, if I had that positive feedback from any of my upper management, you know, I think a lot would have benefited keeping employees on, and
Mhm.
they just want to be recognized. And if they're working very hard and they're showing that they're working hard, and you know, they just want to be recognized, and I think that's a big key to keeping staff and keeping them happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So if there's, and I appreciate you taking the time with Alex and I today on the Employment Roundtable. We're talking with Amy O'Brien, General Manager, Dining Services in the Granite State, New Hampshire.
Correct.
If there's a message that you would like to put out there that is a positive one for the future, because you're seeing a sliver of that or a window of that, what would it be to the folks out there that are trying to meet the challenges in their role like yourself that you'd like to share? And secondarily, what would you like to say to the younger cohort out there about employment?
No, I'm going to be stick to my key and say, you know, hard work really does pay off. You know,
Mhm.
it takes time, but you know, the more experience, the more willing you're, you know, able to do and willing to do, and you know, it does pay off in the long run. And I'm proof of that, because I started off, you know, doing serving and washing tables, and you know, I just worked hard and kept working and focusing and built myself up and been a general manager for years. And you know, it hard work truly does pay off, and that dedication and being a team player and communication, you know, that's just the key point. And if you just stay positive and keep that in your mind, you know, it will pay off in the long run, for sure. And I will say that to the younger generation as well, you know, just when you get out in the real work world, it's, you know, it is hard, but again, hard work does pay off, and just keep a positive attitude.
That's
Right.
great.
I
Alex, do you
think
have something
keeping
you want to add?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I think keeping, you know, thinking more long term about where people want to go in their careers is really important. And sometimes I think it seems like maybe where the some of the traits we're seeing in the younger generation is that they're not thinking long term. You know, it's more
Goals.
immediate what they're looking for. So, oh, I've been in a job for 3 months and I've showed up on time every day. I should get a promotion. You know, from our day and age, or at least for mine, you know, I had to go above and beyond, and I had to distinguish myself from other people to get those promotions. And it didn't happen in 3 months' time, you know. It
Definitely
was
not. Definitely
right.
not. You have to set goals, you know, goals are very important. And if you just sit down and see where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and just try to make a plan. I know it's hard because plans don't always turn out the way you want. Life has changes, and you know, but if you just try to stay on that path, you know, you will get there one day, for
Oh, that's
Absolutely.
sure.
great.
Yeah.
Well, Amy, thank you very much for joining us today. We hope we can have you back in the future with a little larger cohort, potentially somebody that's trying to find their way into the hospitality industry, and listen to their challenges and maybe listen to see how you'd coach them. That would be it'd be a great bit of time if we could get that in the future. But I really want to thank you for joining Alex and I today on our Employment Roundtable podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
All
Thanks,
right, have a
Avery.
great day. Bye bye.
You too.
Oh,